technical difficulties. My name is Kimberly, and on behalf of HCA, I would like to thank you for joining the MetLife Payroll Deduction webinar today. We understand you are busy and we value your time. This webinar will be recorded for those who are not able to attend today or for those who would like to reference this webinar at a later time. Mike Schmitz will be sending a follow-up email in the next day or so with the URL information to retrieve the webinar recording and the bill and remit layouts. The purpose of this webinar today is to introduce MetLife and discuss the payroll deduction billing option for supplemental life and AD&D only. The phone lines will be open during this webinar for folks to ask payroll deduction and or direct billing questions. To be mindful of everyone's time, if you have questions that are not specific to MetLife's payroll deduction or the directed billing, we kindly ask that you hold on to those questions for a later time, as HCA is working on providing more information in the coming weeks to discuss other components of the SEB implementation, such as plan design details, the process for basic benefits, etc. And now I'd like to introduce Deb Marshall from MetLife, who will be presenting the MetLife Supplemental Billing options.
Thanks, Kimberly. Good morning, everyone. My name is Deb Marshall. I'm Senior Implementation Leader for MetLife. My role in this project is to work with the SEB team to coordinate the setup for your 1/1/20 life insurance. On the line with me today have some members of my team to support any questions that you may have today. So I have Allie Ford, who is our client service consultant for SEB, her manager, Kathleen O'Gara. Also joining us today is Tricia Malley. Tricia is our installations individual, and you'll hear a lot more from Tricia as we work through this project. And then Kate Bennett is our dedicated billing analyst that will be working with you throughout your time under the SEB organization. So again, I want to thank everybody for their time today and talk a little bit about the options that are available for billing for your employees. So just to kind of circle back where we are, effective 1/1/20, MetLife has been selected as the insurance carrier for the SEB program for life insurance. This discussion today primarily focuses around the voluntary coverages, those that are employee paid for life insurance. Employees will be enrolling directly with MetLife through our online My Benefits platform. MetLife will capture all the enrollment information, beneficiary information, and do all calculations for you for the billing process. We'll also be providing telephonic customer servicing for all of those pieces, including billing. You can go ahead and advance the slide. So what we're here to talk about today are the two options that are available for the employee paid coverages. The first one is payroll deduction. Probably the most desirable for you, but what we wanted to talk about today was a little bit to give you some information about what that will look like going forward. So a payroll deduction life cycle, as I mentioned, employees will enroll for coverage with MetLife. We'll maintain all the coverage details for employees, calculate the premium, and then based on your company's payroll information, MetLife will create a payroll deduction bill file to send to you. We would ask that you take those deductions from the paycheck and record on the Remit file, which basically verifies that you deducted the amount we requested. The Remit file gets returned to MetLife and is uploaded to our system. After that file is sent to us, an invoice is generated and sent to you. That invoice total is equal to the sum of the deductions that you reported. So basically, we're saying to you, this is what you total, this is how much you owe, and then we would expect the payment to be turned around at that time. This cycle gets repeated each pay period. Now, the reason that we've mentioned this is because you do have the option with this payroll deduction to do it by pay period or per month. Okay. So in setting up, should this be the option that you select, there's 4 major steps to setting up this payroll interface. The first is connectivity or transmission of the files. Our preferred method is SFTP with PGP encryption. The second major piece of this setup would be programming and testing of the bill and remit file layout and review. Should you select this option, we will be setting up individual meetings with your payroll organization to review the bill and remit layout, talk about your payroll dates, scheduling, and determine when you need to actually receive those bills from us, along with providing you payment option information. So that would be a dedicated meeting to just your organization to talk through those questions. In terms of scheduling, these are the questions that we will be talking about at that dedicated meeting. How often are your employees paid? What's the first pay date? How far in advance do you need our bill in advance of your actual payroll? When will you send us the remit? When can we expect payment? And then we would ask for a 1-year payroll schedule so that we together confirmed the dates you'll need to receive the bills, etc. So those are a few of the items that we would be talking about at that dedicated meeting. The final piece in terms of setup would be payment. Who will be your payment contact at your organization? How often will you send it? Will you send it monthly or after each payroll? And then your method of payment, check or wire. This information is the information that we will collect from you at this dedicated meeting. The goal of today was to give you a heads up on the process, as well as kind of an overview of what that meeting will look like. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Mike, I think we have the line open, right?
Deb, we do, yeah. So maybe
Okay.
we pause for a minute and see if anything
Sure.
comes through.
All right, it doesn't sound like we have any questions then. So let's go ahead and advance the slide. The second option that is available is employee direct bill. So again, the process remains the same. Employees continue to enroll with MetLife. MetLife calculates the premium due. And then we create a direct bill and mail to the employee's home address. Employees can remit payment directly to MetLife a number of different ways. They have the opportunity to return a check with the payment coupon that we send in the billing statement. They can set up electronic funds transfers directly with MetLife for an auto draft. Or they can set up the e-box payments through their own bank account and pay their bill that way. This type of process would be repeated each month. However, the employees do have the ability to contact MetLife directly and set up alternate frequencies, monthly, quarterly, semi-monthly, or annually, depending on their preference. So again, this would be a coordination effort directly with the employee and MetLife. You would have no role in this piece, but we wanted to make sure that you are aware of the options available. All right, so the final on this is really what we're asking for is decisions to be made by June 7th. Ideally, of course, for your employees, I would think that the more desirable option would be the payroll deduction, but I do completely appreciate the fact that there is some action that will be required on your part. The request is that you will notify Mike Schmitz, and Mike will be providing us his contact information when he shares a copy of this. And what we'd like to do, as soon as you know that you are selecting this option, we would like to get back together with you and arrange for that meeting that we just talked about to review the layout. The second option, direct bill, if you make no selection by June 7th, we will automatically assume your request is direct bill and begin our setup that way. Are there any questions now?
Tony, can you confirm that the lines are open?
And while we wait on Tony to confirm that, just want to direct people to their computer screen. If you scroll to the top of the screen with your mouse, there is a Q&A button that you can click, and I believe you can type questions there if you're unable to open up your phone line.
Hey, Mike, this is Kimberly. I'm not sure if the Q&A box is open when I click on it, but the chat feature is available.
Okay.
For folks on the phone, if you, on my screen, it's at the bottom. If you hover over, a bar will show up, and then you'll have it'll show, it may look different, but there should be a chat feature button on there, and if you click that, it'll open up the Zoom webinar chat. And if anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and utilize the chat box, just in case the phone lines are not open. We are assuming they are. So we'll just wait a few minutes to see if anybody has any questions via the chat box. Okay, looks like we are good to go on the chat. Some folks are typing. All right, Deb, I see a question. Has MetLife tested any files with the WSIPSI software?
I believe the answer to that question is yes, but that, let me double check with our billing folks.
All right, next question looks like we have, what if the employee were to terminate on the second option? So say if the school district chose, or the sub-organization chose direct bill, and the employee were to terminate.
So if the employee terminates employment, I'm assuming that's the question.
Yes.
Okay. So we of course send the direct bill until no bill is due. We receive the actual termination via the eligibility file from the sub organization. So we would terminate the coverage, and that would end the billing.
Okay, next question. Will the full file be loaded monthly or only changes?
I'm not sure I'm clear on the question. If you're asking us if we have the ability to provide you either a full bill file or a changes only file, is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, Deb, I think that's
Okay.
the question.
Okay.
They just responded yes.
Okay. So then that will be part of the discussion that we have with your organization at this separate meeting. Some individuals will want full, some will want changes only. We have the ability to provide either one, but that is definitely part of that dedicated meeting where we would make that decision with you.
All right, are there any other questions?
So Kimberly and Mike, I'm guessing that based on the lack of questions, it appears there may be some familiarity with this type of setup. That's
And
just
Deb,
a guess on my part.
Deb, I do see a feature on this on the meeting that's allowing me to individually allow people the ability to chat. So I unfortunately have to go individual by individual, but I am opening everyone's phone lines. So we can indeed take questions from folks.
Okay.
Just in case some folks are having difficulties opening the
Yeah.
chat, since we've
And
had
I do hear some
webinar
background, so I
technical
think...
difficulties. Just want to make sure we give everybody the opportunity.
Sure.
Hi, Thomas. Good morning.
So I think I can hear some people opening up now.
The presentation and the agenda is attached in the meeting invite if you'd like to review on your own or break out separately. Good morning.
Jennifer, you had asked a question about direct billing. Are you on the line? Did our response answer your question?
So I'm seeing a question if the sub-organization can meet with MetLife prior to making a billing selection via either the payroll deduction or direct bill. Our goal is to answer any questions. We've dedicated an hour today from 9 to 10 to answer any questions. So feel free to ask questions now that you would have intended to ask MetLife in an individual meeting. Some other sub-organizations may have similar questions, so this may prompt some conversation. So feel free to utilize this time to ask any questions.
And Elise, I think that's how to pronounce your name. I did unmute your line, so you should be able to speak.
I did see another question from Lisa. Will you receive the eligibility file from HCA on an ongoing basis? That is correct. All information will be inputted into SubMy account, which would then go over through an eligibility file to MetLife on a daily basis. So yes.
So this is Alice Bredehoff with the Lake Washington School District.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
What I'm trying to find out before we make a decision on whether we go with the payroll deduction or the direct bill is on your file that MetLife would be sharing with us. You have or have not tested this with SIPC Westpac software?
We have a number of organizations already set up through the Washington Healthcare Authority, but the software component of it, I can't answer for you. I don't know that. I'll have to double check with our billing folks in terms of what software it's being received from.
Okay, because that would be a big factor in us determining whether or not we go with a, payroll deduction or a direct bill is going to be, how easy is this going to be for our payroll department to actually load this information into our system on a monthly basis?
Have you had opportunity to take a look at the file layout?
No, I have not.
Okay.
Where would I find that information?
I know Mike will be sharing it following this meeting. I wasn't certain if it had been provided prior to, but we actually
hey Deb,
have,
I thought we had, I hadn't shared that. It may have been a misunderstanding on my part, but I didn't think we were sharing that for today's meeting. But I'm happy to send it out with I will send it out with the summary.
I believe that'll be very helpful in answering your questions. It's a relatively simple layout. Typically, we don't necessarily get involved in the system that's generating, you know what I mean, or generating that information to us. So I don't know for sure if we'll know where the files are coming from or the systems that they're coming from. We know obviously the agency they're coming from, but the software you're using to generate usually is not something that we would know.
Okay, because obviously that's our biggest concern, is how easy is this to load into our software system. If we don't know that, we can't make an educated decision by June 7th. Mm-hmm. There's just no way.
Understood. We'll go ahead and make sure that everyone on this call today has the ability to take a look at the bill and the remit files.
Do we want to take the opportunity just to kind of quickly display it now and go over it, and then Mike can certainly include that in the email follow-up?
That's fine with me.
Mike, do you have those handy?
Well, I think for us, it would be a matter of, we would need some sort of test file that we could load into a test environment to make sure that it would load properly into our system.
Testing is actually part of our process, but not necessarily for the decision-making piece of it.
Well, it would have to be part of our decision-making process, because if we don't know if a file will load properly into our system, we're not going to be able to say one way or another. I mean, we're going to have to tell you to direct bill our people, which we would prefer not to do. But if we don't have a test file that we can at least try to load into our test environment to see if it will load properly, we cannot make a decision. And I don't think many other school districts could actually make an educated decision if they didn't have that same opportunity.
Are you able to see the layout that Mike is sharing?
I am. I am. And that, you know, unfortunately, you know, the only thing I can do with something like this is send it to my my folks here in our data center to see if this will work for us.
Okay.
Again, the best thing would be is to have like a dummy file from you folks that I could actually try to load.
I don't have any dummy type files that I could provide for testing purposes prior to taking data, unfortunately.
So there's no test files. Okay, that's great. That's what we did needed to know.
Okay.
All right. I'll take what information we have here to our folks and see what they say about it. That's all I can do.
All right.
All right, sorry about that. My phone had dropped off. Let's see, we have some additional questions. Will we be able to export your bill into an Excel file?
So this question is relative to the payroll bill. Trish or Kate from our team, can one of you help me with that answer? I think we're still experiencing technical difficulties here on our side. Do we have the ability to export the bill into Excel? Let me see if I can get that answer. No, bill files do not export into Excel.
All right, next question I see, will employees be able to set up alternate frequency payments in option 1 or just option 2?
Just option 2. Keeping in mind the organization will be able to set up the pay frequency for the entire organization. In other words, 1 payment per month or 2 payments per month, but that will dictate for the entire organization, not individual.
Okay, I'm seeing another question. Is the insurance portable for terminated employees? Yes, there is a portability and converting option, but we will have more details on those eligibility and plan design questions in the coming weeks. Do we have any other payroll deduction, direct billing questions?
If we
Hey,
choose
Deb, Mike here. Or I'm sorry, someone, another participant may have asked a question. I think I might have spoken over.
This is Alice Bredehoff from Lake Washington again. If we choose the direct bill option, when would our participants receive their first bill?
The first bill will go out in December for January payment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then Deb, just going back to, a couple of the other questions, I know as an example, Lake Washington had brought up testing and whatnot. Can you just speak to Deb, can you speak to the implementation approach just a little bit and what we're trying to achieve here? Because, I know we've got a pretty short runway, June 7th, for making a decision as to whether or not SEB organizations want to pursue group billing. But can you speak to just a bit of, what the testing process would look like, and what would happen in the event that, we get into testing and it's just not feasible?
Sure. So what MetLife is working on right now is we are in the process of setting up all of your agency organizations under SEB. Part of that process to set you up and identify you individually is a determination on your billing process, which is why, to Mike's point, we're asking you to make decisions relatively quickly. What happens is once we have all of your information with regard to your agency, you are a part of SEB and your billing process, we set that up in MetLife systems and begin the testing process on our side. The SEB team has asked us to complete this type of eligibility testing with them by early August. So in order to get all of this set up into our system and tested, that's what we're working towards. while that's happening, once you make the decision, we'll begin setting up some time with your organization to actually test the bill and remit layout process. So we'll schedule at least one 1-hour meeting, a follow-up if you need it. And during that testing period, as I mentioned, we review all the layouts, information, and schedule with you an agreed upon time frame for when we can send you that first test bill, when you'll be able to turn it around with us. And all of these things really need to be completed prior to your go live so that we have everything in place for your enrollment in October. So in a perfect world, we have completed not only all of our online enrollment testing and set up with your organization, but we've also completed all of the bill and remit testing and have both your organization as well as us signed off on that just to ensure that we're ready to go for 1/1. I hope that answered your question, Mike.
Deb, looks like
Yeah,
there's a
Deb,
few more.
I think it
Go ahead,
does.
Mike.
Yeah, I was going to say, Deb, I think it does address my question. But I guess the second part of that is, you know, and I hesitate asking, but let's say a SEB organization says, you know, gosh, we want to pursue group billing, and then through the testing process, they find that it's just, you know, not going to work with their payroll setup. I mean, is there the ability to say, or a safeguard, a fallback option, if you will, to move to direct billing?
Certainly not desirable to make changes during enrollment. So one, I would wish to
well, not
stay away
during
from it all
enrollment.
costs.
I'm
Well,
just
that's
saying,
when it's going to happen, though. You know what I mean? So I don't.
Well, I guess where I'm going, Deb, is so let's say we require commitment by June 7th, and maybe there's apprehension that, gosh, you know, we just don't know. We haven't peeled back the onion yet. And then through the course of peeling back the onion over the next 2 weeks, they say, oh my gosh, you know, I think I need to. I think our organization is just going to have to do direct billing. I mean, do we have that fallback option available? I know that's not desirable and that we'd be switching processes post deadline, but it to me seems like that's, you know, this ultimate safeguard in place. Now that being said, you know, we wouldn't want to work the other way around. So if we haven't heard from SEB organizations by June 7th, they're going to go to direct billing. We wouldn't have another opportunity to move them to group billing during plan year 2020. Does that make sense?
It does. And I mean, certainly we'll work to accommodate whatever challenges arise, but I hesitate to give you any definitive. So, you know, if the decision is made that we're going to go with the bill and remit testing, and then for whatever reason it is unsuccessful, certainly we'll come up with strategies and explain what will happen. But, you know, kind of hard to predict.
Yeah, Deb, I
issue.
think that answers
Okay.
my question.
Yeah.
I think you described it much better than me. I mean, it's a partnership, and so through the testing process, you know, you'll work with the SEB organizations to evaluate what the appropriate solution is.
Absolutely.
This is Alice Bredehoft again. My question would be is that, let's say for this first year, we decide to go with the direct billing instead of the payroll deduction, and we see how it's going for others. And could we then change in 2021? Or is it a
Kimberly, I'm sorry.
Or is it a once, you know, it's either or for the remainder?
So Kimberly, I think we take that away based on your strategy in making offers to next in line. I think that
Yeah, and Mike here, I can speak a little bit to that. So, certainly we're giving the 13 largest sub organizations the opportunity for 2020, which is you folks today. Our strategy is to stick with so whatever the final count is by this June deadline, that's what we're going to stick with for plan year 2020 on group billing. And then, so if any of these 13 sub-organizations that are on the call today choose to go to direct billing, yes, you would have to stick with direct billing for a minimum of one plan year. And then we would reevaluate next year whether or not there's an opportunity to implement group billing for any of you on direct billing going forward plan year 2021, and we'd work from largest organization on direct bill down to smallest, but we have no idea at this point how many organizations would get the crack at that. So it could be just a handful. We don't know. So this is probably the best opportunity to guarantee near-term participation in group billing. So Alice, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
I'm sorry. Kimberly, I wonder if we have the opportunity to assist Alice with her question regarding the technology piece through any of the other organizations within the healthcare authority, because I'm not sure that we would know the systems that are creating this information, but would you have any insight through your organization to be able to assist her?
That's definitely something that we can look into and circle back. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because this is Alice again. If these files don't export into Excel, if they exported into Excel, we could probably load them very easily into our files. But if they don't even export into Excel, I'm not sure how that will work for us, because we do take files from other vendors that come in an Excel format, and we are able to load those into our system. But if yours don't even come in an Excel format, I'm just not sure. So it's very hard for me to make a commitment. But again, I will take this information that if I could have, obviously you're going to email all of this to us, and I will take it to our vendor and see what we can do.
Okay. Deb, is there a way we can look into having that functionality to being able to be exported into Excel?
I can ask. At this point, I'm trying to chat with people, and obviously that's creating some challenges. I can certainly look into it for you.
Okay.
And what you're asking is for it to be received in Excel versus the ability for someone to receive it and then export it, right?
Yeah, if it came
That's
in
the
an
question.
Excel, if I could even take it and export your file into an Excel file, which would not be optimum, but if it could come in an Excel format, that would be excellent.
Yeah, Deb, because I'm also seeing a few other sub-organizations asking the same question about being able to have it converted to Excel or arrive in Excel form.
Okay. We can take that away.
So I'm seeing some other questions. Will employees have the ability to enroll dependents in life and AD&D? Yes, sub-eligible employees will be able to enroll dependents. Again, we'll have more information on those details in the coming weeks. I'm also seeing another question. Will there be one deduction per employee or one deduction per type of coverage?
That too is a decision that'll be made at that billing meeting. We have an opportunity to do it either way for you. So certainly individual decisions on that.
All right, looks like we have a few minutes left, so we'll take the next minute or so to see if if there are any other payroll deduction or direct billing questions.
And Tony, are you still on the line?
All right, so I'm not seeing any other additional questions. As we mentioned, Mike will be sending out an email with the recording of the webinar, and we have a few takeaway questions that we will work with MetLife and get responses back to you. Oh, just seeing another question. Will employees enroll in Basic Life and the Supplemental Life directly with MetLife? Basic will be discussed in the coming weeks, but Supplemental Life will be directly with MetLife. That's correct.
Okay, Kimberly, and as you mentioned earlier in the call, Tony should be recording this session for us, and then what I will do is once the link is available, I will distribute that link to all of the participants on today's call, and I will include the test files as well as the deck that was reviewed today.
Great. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you, Deb and MetLife team. Thank you again to the sub-organizations for joining the call. We do apologize about the technical difficulties, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Tony, are you there? Hey, Tony, this is Kimberly. We've concluded the webinar. Just let me know when you are on the line so that we can exit and save the chat history and the recording as well.